right along the whole COVID-19 sort of different opinions on lockdowns, one of the presidents who has been sort of controversial, he's not super far left, he's more of a, I would say, a libertarian-minded kind of guy. He has kind of been trying to place it smart with the United States. He receives a lot of criticism from the left for his, he used to be like a leftist and then he sort of strayed away from that. And he's big, obviously, on Bitcoin. He's been talking about Bitcoin. El Salvador, of course, put Bitcoin as their second currency under the US dollar. So Nayib Bukele has been urging his citizens to work out and eat healthy to defeat COVID. He has been talking about COVID in terms of it's a health issue, but of course the health ministry of El Salvador was the one that produced this ad, and he shared it, and he's largely obviously in favor of it. So let's take a look at this ad, and then we can discuss what people think, because there's a lot of controversy with an ad like this in the United States.
Mantener un estilo de vida saludable también ayuda a reducir las complicaciones por COVID-19. Los grupos con más riesgo de mortalidad son los adultos mayores y las personas con obesidad, hipertensión, diabetes y enfermedades crónicas. Por eso pon en práctica estas recomendaciones. Aliméntate saludablemente con una dieta balanceada para acercarte a tu peso ideal. Haz actividades al aire libre. Así respiras aire fresco y recibes algo de sol, lo que tu cuerpo necesita para producir vitamina D. Toma por lo menos 2 litros de agua al día para mantener tus riñones saludables. Reduce el estrés dedicándote tiempo a ti mismo, por ejemplo, haciendo yoga o leyendo un libro. Trata de dormir no menos de 6 horas al día. Incluye cítricos en tu dieta, como limones, naranjas o mandarinas. Evita el consumo de bebidas alcohólicas, alimentos altos en azúcar o en grasas saturadas. Hoy más que nunca, debemos cuidarnos entre todos. Mantente saludable. Gobierno de El Salvador.
Great. So as you guys can see, they focus primarily on saying people should work out, eat a healthy diet, eat enough citrus, and also have sleep. These are basic common sense things that people should do. Health is one of the main things that actually determines so much of your life, and more research has led doctors and scientists to really understand that your stomach, your gut, is extremely important. In fact, it has its own sort of brain. And I've talked about that obviously in my personal life with other people, and it really makes a huge difference what you eat in terms of how you feel and how often you get sick and all of these things, and having like good immunological health. Dr. Fauci has barely ever said anything about this. I mean, they say it in passing, but they don't consider it a huge component of beating COVID. When you look at the hospital rates and the characteristics of people who are actually dying from COVID, the people who are at most at risk of that are obese people, people with diabetes, and people with underlying conditions. That is a fact. So in America, where we have a very unhealthy population that relies on fast food, a lot of the reasons why is because of poverty. It's because it's quick and cheaper. And so you have this whole thing where you start thinking, well, wait a minute, if it was about our health, they would give us better food. They would give us access to natural medicine. They would really focus on not stressing people out so much, because America is a culture where you live to work instead of working to live. It's one of the main criticisms that other people in other countries have about Americans. You know, we're overworked, we're underpaid. And so that sort of system leads to people being unhealthy. And it's much cheaper if you go out to eat unhealthy than it is to eat healthy. If you cook, you can still manage to eat pretty healthy. Rice and beans, and I would say vegetables aren't expensive, but it is more expensive to buy, say, non-meat products out when you're out and eating, and salads and fancy salads can be expensive and all of that. So a lot of people are too busy working to actually feed themselves properly, but people have to think about it in terms of, if I don't spend the money to eat better, I'm going to end up spending more money in the hospital. And that's the way I look at things in terms of what I eat. But one of the things that is criticized in America is that this is ableist, that an ad like this is very it's fat shaming people, basically, right? And you really mainly only get those criticisms in the West. You mainly only get those criticisms from Americans, because if you talk to pretty much the vast majority of Latinos, the vast majority of people in Europe, you don't get that same type of pushback. You get people embracing and saying, yeah, we got to eat healthier and all of that, especially in Europe, where Americans are known as having huge portions. They're known as being just overweight. And some of the things that are legal here in America, some of the products and the processed foods that are legal here in America are illegal in other parts of the world, including in England and in countries like France. So I don't see this as being ableist. I see it as being extremely honest about how a lot of the liberal culture has embraced, the whole be proud of your body and be proud of your imperfections is good. But some people take it to the extreme of be proud that you're extremely obese. And, people have different body shapes. Some people who are very skinny are unhealthy. And that doesn't mean that they're healthy just because they're skinny. There are a lot of people who work out all the time who just don't have the body type of being lean. That doesn't mean they're unhealthy necessarily. So it's not about that. It's about health, and it's about being able to say this without being told that you're being ableist. And it's not ableist to tell people that they should eat healthy and it reduces their likelihood of being severely affected by COVID. You can go to any scientist or doctor that will literally tell you that. So I wanted to point that out because it's interesting. You don't hear that discussion much in America because it gets turned into, this is all about ableism. You're making fun of fat people. You're telling people blah, blah, blah. One thing I will say is that the lockdowns also hurt in this regard, because a lot of people gained weight during the pandemic because you weren't allowed to go outside. The gyms were closed and people were just sitting at home, cooking, baking, eating, and drinking. So yes, that made you more vulnerable to getting COVID. So that's something that's never talked about for fear of offending people. And I think we have to get over that and start understanding that what we eat really is of huge importance. So props to Nayib Bukele. I don't agree with him on everything, but I think we need more of that. Okay, so I don't have that tweet, but he's showing the Zuby tweet. All right, I wanted to show this tweet. Jonny, do you have my Twitter open? Can we send the link to our friend? So this is from Frank Analysis. He said, Jordan Cheriton made this tweet about, talking to his friend and how he made the point that, well, insulin isn't made illegal because diabetic people have to take it. And so Franco responded with, I didn't know insulin was mandated on the entire population, including people who don't need it. A lot of these people are making comparisons with seatbelts, with, having to wear clothes inside a restaurant, with all these things like insulin that don't have anything to do with the actual reality of forced vaccinations, which is a completely different thing. You're talking about, even though the CDC says these vaccines are safe and effective, they were largely pushed via the EUA, the Emergency Use Authorization. They didn't have enough time to have trials. It is, by many accounts, to many people, an experimental vaccine. So to say that this is the same thing as insulin is just a straw manning. And it's these sort of arguments we have to start really destroying, because they're not built on any sort of honest analysis or honest foundation. So I just wanted to point that out as well.